Hello, my friends. Welcome to New Kids with a Shop, brought to you by the Arcade Comics, Collectibles, and Games, located in the temporary ice age that is Fort Wayne, Indiana. I'm Matt Cade.
And I am Craig Ray, and this is Creator Spotlight, Tim Barron. Hey, everybody. Welcome to New Kids with a Shop, Creator Spotlight with Tim Barron today. We're super excited to have him on. Little intro into Tim. He has designed skateboards for Tony Hawk, action figures for Super 7. He is himself a skateboarder, and his work has appeared in many places, including an episode of the Goldbergs. Thank you very much for joining us today, Tim.
Hey, what's up, guys? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I'm just going to kick it right off, and anybody that's actually listening to this podcast, Tim actually created that art for us, and it is fantastic. Well, I want to say thank you, first of all.
Thank you.
Talked about that.
You made me Darth Vader, and I will forever thank you for that.
I'm stoked you guys liked it.
It's fantastic.
You already with the stoked. I love it. That's awesome. So, getting into it, Tim, let's start at the beginning. When did you? Well, in this will be comics related, obviously, because
Sure.
you know you do have a love for comics. But if you can give us kind of some insight as far as like where you grew up and how, you ended up being this, incredible artist, and you guys let's start at the beginning. How did your journey start?
Sure. Well, comics played a very crucial role in the very earliest stages of my development as a creative. I would say, well, I was born here in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and I had an amazing childhood filled with comics and toys and pop culture like Star Wars, G.I. Joe, Transformers, all of the things that us as 80s kids loved growing up with. Very formative after-school cartoons, Saturday morning cartoons. Like, that was my life.
I think we all have that in common, and so
Yeah.
most of our conversations kind of steer that way as far as Saturday morning cartoons and all the same type
Mask.
of stuff that brought us together. Yeah, for sure, man.
I
Mask.
loved Mask.
But I would say that my very earliest exposure to like comics and superheroes was there was a show called The Bozo Show I used to watch. It was on WGN, like the Chicago.
Yeah, the Chicago Clowns show.
And every morning I would watch it, and they would have like there was like a special time in the later in the show where they would like show these pictures on the wall. They were like these round circles on the wall, and they had like Superman and Batman, and then they would show like a cartoon of that character. Like, I was so excited. Like, I always knew it was time for superhero cartoons.
Right.
And you know what? One of my very first pieces of art that my mom saved, I still had, is I drew superheroes in these like these circles, just like on the Bozo Show.
And just like our design.
Yeah.
It's probably a subconscious channeling. Yeah, there you go.
Do you remember watching the grand prize game growing up?
Oh,
watching
yeah.
that, and remember thinking how much those kids were hacks because they couldn't get any further?
Yeah.
You were like, where do they get these kids that are the worst?
Bozo the Clown I have not thought about Bozo the Clown for years.
Oh, it's
my
so instrumental.
gosh.
It was so
Yes.
instrumental. And then I would always go to the grocery store with my mom, right? And this is like back in the day when we could do this. But she would let me just stand at the comic book spinner rack. Like, I was like super small, like 5, 6 years old.
Yeah.
And then she would go grocery shopping and leave me there to like just look at all the comics on
Sure.
the spinner rack. And like those were like kind of sacred times for me, because that's when I was first exposed to like the art of like Bill Sienkiewicz and I'm trying to think, just everything. Like, I would just go there and I would just literally look at everything.
His New Mutant covers are just...
And it was those New Mutants
Yes.
covers and like Moon Knight.
Yes.
And I always, there was something like, and I was like so small. I was like, 6, 7 years old.
So what year would that be, just for perspective?
So I'm 46.
It'd be like 82, 83.
It'd be like 82, 83.
Okay.
And yeah, and so I would always buy like the Transformers comics or like G.I. Joe or Star Wars and things like that.
Sienkiewicz #1's a hot book now. I mean, just because they're talking about the show and things like that. But I was just pumped because that Transformers 1 is a Sienkiewicz cover.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
It
but
is the best cover art for any toy.
It's incredible.
It's
Like,
so amazing.
Yeah, it is. And I was like, I would always be so like, I didn't know it was just different. His covers were, and I was just like a little kid processing this. And it was the same thing. We'll talk about it later about Frank Miller's art, the way he drew Batman in Dark Knight Returns, where it's just so, what's so different? Or he's so chunky and like gnarly.
How did we get lucky enough though to have Bill Sienkiewicz do Transformer covers though?
Well, and I still remember just losing my mind and seeing the commercial. There was a commercial for the Transformers comic. I think before the cartoon ever dropped, maybe before the toys were even out, there was like a partially animated cartoon, and then you saw the Bill Sienkiewicz Optimus Prime cover. And as soon as I saw that I bought that thing immediately. Same thing with G.I. Joe. Like that was advertised as a comic before it was anything else. And
I never had G.I. Joe. I always had the Mask toys though. But
I loved Mask.
They were so fantastic.
I had so many of them.
I know, and they're making a live action adaptation supposedly.
Haven't they been thinking about doing that for like 15 years?
I know. Don't ruin my...
Like ROM? Haven't they been thinking about doing
ROM? Space Knight. Yes.
It'll happen. I mean, the folks that care about that stuff are the age that they're able to make things happen.
They have money. They have money now. Stuff
Yeah.
they can spend. We have disposable income we can use for it.
Yeah.
That'd be...
I hope so.
So, and this is actually, I found this out just recently speaking with you. Like, what was it exactly that showed up on the Goldbergs of yours?
Oh, that was amazing. And if you blink, you'll miss it. But it's the beginning of an episode called Bohemian Rap City. It's one of the later seasons.
Is that one where Barry's starting to work on that career of his?
Yeah.
As Big Tasty? Or is that what
Yeah.
Tasty.
It's a really funny episode. But at the beginning of the episode, there is a scene that takes place in Toys R Us with the main character who plays Adam in the show. And the Toys R Us employee is actually Sucklord. I don't know if you're much into like bootleg toy scene, but there's this guy named Sucklord who's been doing like just top-notch bootleg stuff from the very beginning. Like he is the gold standard. And there's this debate between him and Adam in Toys R Us, and the whole scene is just littered with like Transformers and G.I. Joe and He-Man stuff in the background.
Sure.
Just recreating this beautiful, glorious corner of Toys R Us circa 1985.
Or KB Toys, man.
Or KB
Well,
Toys.
just to give some perspective for all ages, Toys R Us, I mean, we had one in town here up until, I don't know,
5 years ago?
or so, but as kids our age, that is where you went.
That was Disneyland in Fort Wayne. That was the closest you
Fort
can
Wayne
get.
had the Children's Palace over
Yes.
where the
Yes.
border, it became a Borders, and now it's the Natural Food Shop. But that was another spot you could go. Like those were the two competing stores. But there used to be legit size of Walmart toy stores that existed.
Yeah.
So they had some crazy stuff in there.
Yeah. My childhood has those gorgeous memories baked into
Yes.
it. Like walking in that place and being so small and seeing just aisles just stacked up to the ceiling of like G.I. Joe.
The Nintendo aisle would blow my mind. I was like, Nintendo has a robot? What does this thing do? I was thinking it was incredible.
I got my Nintendo Duck Hunt set there.
Yep.
I was like, it was one of those weird times where I was like, I don't know if I deserve this because this is a first, but I'm like, I'm gonna go with it, and holy crap, I played the heck out of some Duck Hunt.
Zapper, man.
Did that robot actually even do anything?
No. It did as much as the Power Glove, yes.
Amazing.
But so from that age, I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, so
track.
back to the Goldbergs, but yeah, so Adam, the actual guy who produces the show, Adam Goldberg, and this is awesome. Do you mind if I share like the side story that goes with it? Okay,
Absolutely.
so I was still at my day job at the time that I'd been at for like, I don't know, like 17 years, 18 years, and it was just going downhill like in a hurry, and just because I'd been there so long, and I just wanted to do art and like
That on top of the fatigue of just being somewhere for so long. And,
yeah, and everybody knew like my heart was not in laying out insurance forms professionally. You know what I'm saying? People just
well, why not, Tim?
Somehow the masses knew, no matter how hard I tried, that wasn't my jam. But so, anyways, and I had gotten the worst review, just slaughtered on my yearly review. And so it was a Saturday afternoon, and I was just like licking my wounds. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. Yeah.
And I got this email, and it said Adam Goldberg from
You're not wearing enough flair to work, Tim. Where's your flair, Tim?
You need 17 pieces of flair, Tim.
Sorry to derail again.
No, that's a classic scene. Oh yeah, and then it was Adam Goldberg, the guy who produces the show, the Goldbergs.
Who
and
it's based on, basically. His,
It was based on his
Yeah,
childhood,
yeah.
and he's like, hey, I love your work. I would like to buy some of your bootleg figures that you make, because at the time I was doing these bootleg like Krull action figures
yes,
and like
yes.
Critters and
Yes,
Ghoulies and
yes.
So he did this with several other like bootleg toy creators, and so like the entire background, like I said, you have to look, like you
Sure.
blink and you'll miss it. But there is all kind, like my Krull guys up there, my Critters. There's like
But
there's all kinds of.
kudos to that guy. I mean, as far as like
yeah.
being, he's in the business of making.
He could have had someone else do it. He could
Yeah.
have passed it off to someone else or an assistant.
But
he
going
did
to
it
like the
himself.
legit source of the
Yeah.
people that had that same love as him.
Or he could have had
pretty cool,
the
too.
props department make a bunch of that crap too. But
Yeah.
he didn't do that, which is awesome.
I was stoked, and he was a super cool guy too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it dug me out of the trenches that lonesome Saturday afternoon.
So it was
set you
just
free.
a phone call. Oh, sorry.
It was an email. It was an email, and so we've stayed in touch a little bit now and again since then. So
That's fantastic.
yeah, great guy.
Cool. So that would move us out of the
Who is Tim Barron?
who is Tim Barron portion, and I think we can get into like we prepared a few questions
Sure.
if you don't mind. Cool.
Absolutely.
If you want to kick it off, Matt.
So Tim, how explain how the relationship started with us, how we got to know each other, and how you created some art for us.
Sure. So one of my close friends, Dave, is your brother-in-law.
Yes, he is.
And I think from that connection, plus I think just the Fort Wayne connection, and you and I come from a similar circle, an overlapping circle
Yes,
of friends,
we have a bunch of
Jeremy
friends,
and
yeah.
some of the artists, and I think we hung out with a lot of the same people, even though we didn't know each other. In the
Yes, I knew of you,
Sure.
and I remember seeing you skate a lot.
Really?
Yes. You always you had long hair, and you
Oh, it was
skated
beautiful long
everywhere.
hair.
Yes.
Yeah. That was incredible.
That's why I grew mine out, actually.
Those flowing locks.
Yeah. Heard about
No,
Tim's.
it was a sight to behold.
Yes, it was. I've seen some of the video. I've seen some of the pictures you posted,
Yeah. Yeah. It
which
was.
brought back memories.
I was a bit of an attention whore. Like I didn't like drink or like smoke weed in high school, but that hair was like
It looked like you did.
it was all the self-intoxicating that I need was having that hair. So
And
I just went on way too long about that.
no, but have you been skating constantly since you were a child? Was there any times you stopped?
Yeah, I did. So I started when I was in 5th grade, and that came at like the perfect time because that's like right before you go make that transition into those awkward junior high years where you're just like looking for something to latch onto for identity, and that like provided that. And I would say that I did it. Let's see, so from 5th grade all the way through high school, through college, through like the 4th year, like at least like 13, 14 years I did it. And then got married and had kids, and then got an office job, and then ultimately it's like I came back to skating, and that like breathed life into me like nothing else did at the time. It was incredible.
Did you ever try to compete on any level? Or did you ever go to?
I never did. I was always scared to. I kind of wish I would have now back in the day, but I think I was always just so scared of the performance anxiety of doing that. I don't know why. I don't know why. I think it's just that natural fear that you have. But if I could go back and do it again, because I was decent.
Well, and plus, Fort Wayne, Indiana, you don't think of like a skating hub.
You really don't.
You think, you don't. You think it's Southern California. So it's
Yeah.
like, I understand that too.
Well,
Yeah.
like golf, you can only really skate however many months out of the year.
Yeah.
That's true. And we had a skate park for only like a short
Yes,
minute.
sure.
It was like
Yeah.
for 3 years tops, I think, Sweeney Skate Park. Mm-hmm. I think it started when I was in 8th grade. No,
Because was that where the bike track was too? The BMX track?
I think so.
Because that went back and forth, and yeah, it wasn't in a good part of town at the time.
Right.
So
yeah.
it didn't last long though.
No, like 2.5 years. Because I remember we jumped the fence. Like after it closed, we would jump the fence and still skate it.
Yeah.
This is just like the stereotypical skateboard
It
story.
really.
Yeah.
We jumped we were so, my long hair got caught in the fence. We jumped.
It was flowing in the wind.
That's awesome, though.
Yeah.
So, were you doing any of the art stuff? Well, we'll bring it back.
Sure.
After this.
What started? What did you get into first? Art or skateboarding?
It was definitely art. Like I was doing art, like
From
like,
the Bozo
just
show?
For the Bozo show. Yeah, like when I was like, again, like maybe 3 years old, I've got drawings that my mom saved that I just unearthed last year. And
How much do those sell for?
oh, no, yeah,
Millions?
no one could have millions. Yeah, it's just, at least six figures, typically, on a bad day. No, but I was just creating, like, first thing, I would just draw. Like, I've got a drawing that I did of a face when I was like 3 years old. And then those superhero, as soon as I started intaking pop culture, like, I started like,
Did you have any formal training ever? Did you ever go to school, or did you go to have classes for it?
yeah, like that's what I went to college for.
Okay.
Yeah,
Where'd you go?
I was at PFW here
Okay.
in Fort Wayne, and I got a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree. And yeah, it was in drawing. So, and I was so glad I took that. Like, there's just really nothing else that, like, I could have done. I mean, I was a graphic designer for like 20 years, and that was like a career, that kept the lights on and whatnot. But
It was a way of kind of adjacent to what you really wanted to be doing, but able to pay the bills.
it paid the bills. But I also like learned a ton on, like,
Sure.
like I learned a lot about Photoshop and Illustrator and all those apps, and preparing files for printing, and I use a different part of my brain that wouldn't have gotten developed in just drawing and traditional art.
How outdated is that knowledge already as far as technology and things like that? I mean, because I
Have you kept up with it?
Well, I mean, like file prep, like when I send,
Sure. I mean,
that's pretty basic, but like, I used Photoshop constantly with Illustrator. Like, that's where I learned how to use, like how I learned to color line art was there. So
I'm asking because I'm completely out of touch with any of that. Is like, so for the point when you were in school to now, like, how is that?
Oh,
advanced?
from school. I thought you meant at the job.
I'm sorry. No, I mean, that's because you had said, that's where you'd started and you learned about this stuff.
Gotcha.
I know from, the audio engineering stuff,
Yeah.
at least, there are some changes, but it's not drastic. It's like, it's been kind of set in, like,
Yeah.
this is how you create a track. And this, there's been developments in technology. As far
Yeah, I didn't
as-
do any digital art in college. Like, I took like a web design class, and that was
Sure.
1999. So that's
And that's why I'm asking as far as
come a
the
little
difference.
ways, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't do web design anymore. So, but yeah, so yeah, with everything that I was doing in college, it was mostly drawing. It was mostly like figure drawing, and also I did printmaking in that. It was all like super like stuff that people in like ancient people would have been doing,
Right.
So
Do some typesetting too?
yeah.
That's awesome.
Now tell us about some of the skateboards you've created for different skaters.
Yeah, that's been amazing. And that was, like I said, like from like childhood to like junior high, it was like toys and comics were like my bread and butter. Like, that's what like really fueled me. And then all of a sudden, like, I discovered skateboarding, and that really gave me, well, I guess provided an identity and a subculture to be a part of.
Sure.
And then once I opened like my first copy of Thrasher magazine,
Oh gosh.
I still remember the exact issue.
Yeah.
I realized, oh my gosh, like, skateboarding isn't just like riding a skateboard. Like, this is an entire like
It's a
culture.
it's a lifestyle.
It's a
too.
lifestyle, and there's music, and there's a style of art, and there's like attitude, and there's like clothes. Like, it's it's a complete package. There's so much more than just writing.
So you feel like that is what influenced your art and took it to the next.
I was going to ask too, how, like, you have a very singular style. Your stuff is, it's perfect for Halloween or horror stuff. What led you to that? What brought you to that style?
So it's an amalgamation of like so much art that I did. Like,
I see Skeletor in so many of your.
oh yeah, I mean, it's just an amalgamation of like
The stuff you grew up
40
with.
years of toys and comics, good guys, bad guys, some art school stuff. Favorite artists, like in the skateboard community, there was a guy, VC Johnson, who did the original Tony Hawk graphic of the Hawk skull and the
The square
cross.
around it.
Yeah, and the first time I saw his stuff, I was just blown away. Like, first of all, that there was a guy who actually was named Tony Hawk.
Yeah.
Right.
Like how can you be born into such awesomeness? Like,
Right.
I remember going to skate shops.
That's a superhero.
in the '80s and
Yeah.
being feeling the awe of the boards that were there, like the different, like all the different, the art on the. It was just a magical place to me. The skate shop in the '80s was amazing, but the art on the boards was next level because most guys would thrash the boards anyway.
Exactly.
And so, but they were done so well. It was
beautiful art that was going to get trashed.
Yes,
I mean, it was crazy. Like it didn't feel, but coming from
it was disposable. Essentially,
it doesn't feel that way, though.
No,
like it's one of those things where you look at it and you're like, this should never be ruined.
I know it's a weird. It's a weird thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same way with comics. To kind of go off a little bit, like when we have to damage something or something comes in damaged, you have this weird internal thing where
it hurts my soul when I have to rip a cover off of a book. It hurts me intrinsically, like nothing else. Yeah, it hurts me when I have to do that.
Even though it's a print.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not like it's the
it's not the original art.
It just feels weird. There's just when you appreciate something like that, you don't want to see any of it.
Especially from collecting comics and trying to make sure none of them ever get damaged. To going, oh, its cover's coming off. Right, 300 more to go. You know, it's just it hurts sometimes.
I feel like it's different with skateboarding though.
No, for sure.
Well, yeah, because that is because grinds and everything else, it damages the board.
It's almost like, to me, it's almost a
it's just a tool.
Like if I see somebody who bought a board
and it wasn't trashed.
Yeah, like if it was just in a person's. But if I see the tail, the nose, and the middle is all scratched off, scuffed off, I'm just like, heck yeah, man.
You know, that was. You wanted to go back in time and say, I want to watch how that was. I want to see how that scrape was made. I want to see
a huge compliment, man. Yeah.
It's like guitars, but like Stevie Ray's, the back of his guitars he would wear belt buckles and things like that. So the backs of his guitars are trashed just from like the movement and stuff. And you're like, that guitar was loved.
Yes.
It adds to the ambience of the object too.
That's a thing now.
Yes.
Become relicked out of the factories now. They'll relic something ahead of time so that it looks like it was loved.
Oh wow, yeah.
Which is, I mean, it's the same thing as like hole rip, like the jeans that you buy that already have holes in them.
Yeah,
It became a thing. You're like, just wear the jeans.
Yeah.
just wear them for 3 years.
It's like you're gonna look like a dork wearing those Wranglers the first few years, but get over it. Make your holes.
How many skateboards or how many skaters have you created boards for?
Oh man, it's been a lot.
What? Okay.
Well, I've done.
What is your favorite you've ever done?
Well, I'd say that the Tony Hawk ones were that was like bucket list stuff. Because I did the one for him initially.
The one where he was talking about you was like, I got chills.
That was one of the most surreal moments of my life. Yeah, because he's got a podcast with Jason Ellis, and it's called the Hawk versus Wolf podcast.
Can we hit that? I want to talk about this whole thing at length as far as how that whole experience started. But I want to continue on the path. I want to go back to the original path we were on and kind of hit up that started. Did that start with an email or a phone call? I want to start from
who reached out to who.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Sorry.
So, no, this is.
I'm just excited to talk about it.
No, this is I got chills watching that video you posted, and it was amazing. Like, and Tony Hawk was like, Tim Barron is amazing.
Oh, that was so surreal.
It was
so surreal.
It was a cool moment, man. I felt so good for you.
Yeah, thank you. Awesome. I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, like my entire middle school identity was based off of the existence of a man, Tony Hawk, and it's right on down to the haircut.
Yeah. Did he contact you, or did you?
Okay, so here's how this went.
Yes. I've been wanting to hear this.
Dun.
So there is, like, I have kind of an obsession of like taking well-known images of people or whatever, and then just like redrawing them, like
transmuting them,
yeah.
like with your alien stuff you did, the Geiger stuff you took and you put like the print I bought from you was the Christmas Village, the snow globe alien head. Mm-hmm. Yes.
I love taking like well-known images, and there was an old Powell Peralta skateboard company ad, and I think it was taken by the photographer. I think it may have been Grant Britton. He's a famous skate photographer, but it had Tony just like. It was for an ad for his board, and he was just kind of like leaning on his skateboard, and he had the hair, and it was just like such a classic. Because there's something special about images that I was so familiar with in like a kid, that I saw these and just like and like redrawing them or re-engaging with them as an adult. Like it's just automatically magic. There's a certain energy to that carries forward naturally, like a love.
And it's cool because a lot of time. The way that just time progresses, there's going to be some people that see yours as the first piece of art.
Yeah.
That they encounter that.
That is
and then
interesting to
find
think
out,
about.
you know, they can move back and see that original piece and the inspiration stuff.
Yeah.
That's why I think music lends itself so well to that culture as well with skating, because or anything really, arts, right? But it's cool for us. It's like Spider-Man is Miles Morales for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And-
Of a certain age, yes.
Right. And it's
You know, Christian Bale is some people's Batman, or some people's Batman, and Michael Keaton or other people's Batman. It's just, that's how it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Clone Wars is somebody's Star Wars.
Yes.
right. And it's cool though. I mean, we know, you know, you are that person that maybe you've seen that iconic image first. And I'm like, that's so awesome. You know?
Yeah.
And then
That is a
it's-
surreal thought. That's
Yeah.
cool to think about. I hadn't considered that.
Well, I mean, we absolutely. I won't speak on your behalf, but I can't even draw a stick figure. Like, I'm bad to the point where I can't stop. Like, all my stick figures have penises because I can't even stop the long line that makes the body. Like, I'm awful.
The only thing I could draw is
can't do
I did architecture in school, and I could draw buildings and stuff, but I have to use straight edges, and I cannot do it freehand. But so art is like a magical thing for me too. It's like I have no idea how it's made. I just think it magically appears. But watching processes, or watching when you do a time lapse video, is amazing.
Yeah.
They are so.
Well, I think I don't even understand the approach.
No.
Like when you watch like Frank Cho do the crosshatch
Yes,
stuff,
the
you're like,
pin-
that's
the
not
pin-
how I would imagine this is made, or the steps that you do to go over it. And
Yeah.
that's one of the things I was going to say about your channel and the way, you know, that you handle everything is you are amazing in your art, but also you're extremely positive. You share what you do know, and you've
always got a smile on your face. Too.
Yeah, and you try to explain and kind of give back to the community, which is, I think, kind of why we became such great friends. Is we're trying to, they're different things, but we're trying to do the same thing with our community, the same way that that you try to reach out to your community, and that is that we're all have this love for these things, and like we should share what we know, and it's an extremely positive thing, and
Yeah, definitely.
it's another thing that draws, I think, people to you, and it's instantly recognizable that you're just a cool, chill dude, and
Thanks.
that
Your art is fantastic.
yeah, and it's fantastic on top of it.
Thanks,
Like,
guys.
we genuinely, absolutely love the stuff, and that's why
Yeah.
we have it in the store. We have you on in here, and
I've got one of your boards signed downstairs. I've got half a dozen of your prints at home.
I appreciate it. You guys have been a huge support, and I appreciate you guys.
So, going back to the
Tony Hawk
story, yeah.
Okay, Tony Hawk story. Okay, so I redrew this ad image, but I did it like he was a skeleton. There's another artist whose work I love that I grew up with named Pusshead, and if you grew up in 80s, 90s skating, like you probably recognize that. But he did, like, nobody drew skulls like Pusshead.
Yeah,
like it was
yeah,
the
yeah.
most visceral. Like, oh my gosh, you could
Brows and
Yes, and so I just kind of started drawing like sort of these homage drawings in kind of a Pusshead style, and I did one of Tony. Somebody tagged Tony on it on Instagram, and just random.
awesome.
Somebody tagged him, and then he posted on the image. He said something like, "This is cool. Let's do this." And so,
What?
yeah, right, yeah. So
Wow.
I just flipped out. And it
God
was-
reached down and grabbed you.
But then it's just like, and then I like shot Tony a DM, and then there was just like, you can't just slide into Tony Hawk's
No.
DMs. You
Or
just,
can you?
Yeah.
well, so
Timothy.
I gave it some time, and I mean, the guy probably just gets deluged with like,
He probably has assistants to deal with most of it.
I'm sure he does. And so what
That's
I did,
the way to go about it, though. Like I bet that every single person that is the aggressor probably gets ignored, and you just throwing out, "Hey, this is what I'm doing," and picking that makes it, I think, twice as gratifying.
Plus,
you
it's
were minding your
it's
own business.
Totally organic too. It's like you couldn't have
Yeah.
planned it better. You couldn't have planned it better.
See, for every 10 stories I hear of why I wish social media would disappear, there's one like that where I'm like, "Oh
Yeah.
God."
Yeah.
That's the greatest thing for me is like you have contact with authors that you love, or artists that you love, and you can actually interact with them a little bit. And 20 years ago, you couldn't do that at all. That's the one thing I
There's
like
no
about social
celebrity
media.
pedestal anymore
No.
in that regard. Like, it used to be like this myth. There used to be mythological creatures, and now you realize they're just
They're just humans trying to get through the day.
Yeah.
So
the gatekeepers
Yeah.
aren't
Yep.
gatekeeping like they were at one time. But yeah, so I think I waited.
So it started with Tony Hawk saying, "Let's do this."
Back to this again. Sorry.
DM'd Tony, and like you said, he probably doesn't handle his own, and so I didn't hear anything for a while.
So the responses from there, like, Mr. Hawk would like. Yeah.
So what I did was, I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, LinkedIn Premium. I can just like start looking at. So I managed to track down somebody in the video department on LinkedIn. I signed up for the premium and just started DMing. I don't know if I should even share this information. I don't know if this is recommended, but
Well, don't give all your secrets away.
yeah. So
Actually, let me get a pen.
So anyways, I found a video person, and they put me through to, I think it was his like art director.
Yeah.
And so I pitched a couple ideas, and
So you were not prepared for. I mean, you didn't have the structure set up to complete something like this to start with. Like at that point, it was like, let's go.
yeah, it's at that point you find a way. Like
Right.
you're just like,
Well,
there's not
absolutely.
any way this isn't going to happen. Now I'm going to. So you just find a way, and so I was just like, yeah. I just DM'd like several people. I was like, yeah, Tony wanted to use this, was interested in using this image. I'm just following up, and
Which, funny enough, I found that is also something that makes you unique, because there's a lot of people, artists, that are so terrified of actually putting it out there where they would freeze up and not put that work in.
Yeah.
I mean, we know mutual people even that have opportunities they won't seize.
yeah.
Because they're shy or they're
Oh,
Right.
dude, it's hard.
they
Yeah.
have stage fright.
So that's another thing of respect. I mean, you not only have to do what you do, you have to have the confidence. Even when somebody tells you, like Tony Hawk, it still takes some balls to follow through, because at that point,
Oh yeah,
It's
like,
real.
I feel it in the pit of my stomach. I'm just like, oh my gosh, am I really going to do this? Do I
Right.
want to do this? Like, because you open yourself up to,
criticism.
and just making an idiot of oneself.
Well,
you know?
praise is another thing that becomes a problem. It changes you. I mean, it opens it up to an audience then, where previously people that may not have seen it, and in your normal life, I don't know how it is for you guys, but I don't walk down a grocery store and people are like, "Oh man, you're so incredible." It doesn't happen to me. Maybe for you, but when you show what you can do like that, it opens that side up along with the criticism, and it just
Yeah, you're
changes
right.
everything.
Yeah.
And I don't know if, especially in a happenstance situation like that, like, you weren't prepared mentally for taking on, new criticism and taking on. You were just trying to make art.
To this Tony Hawk, and I was just like, opportunity. And I've just learned that like when I always
You have to seize it, otherwise it'll slip
you
through
do.
your
It's like
hands.
a loose thread on a sweater. Like you just need to keep pulling the thread until there's nothing left. You know.
So when you finally got through them, was there a lot of revisions, or was it the first thing you put through?
Oh no, I pitched at least a half dozen images and
Like
sketches. Yeah,
okay.
like fairly polished
Yeah,
sketches.
because you did one for our shirt, and I don't.
Yeah, exactly like that. And so it was just really weird, because then he was just like, I showed Tony your sketches and he likes number 3. I'm just like, oh my gosh. Like I'm literally 1 degree away from Tony Hawk, and I am.
Who is one of your, like, it's a figurehead that you thought,
He's still popular, but I don't think people understand.
but he's
people our age, like
yes,
Tony Hawk,
we have lived with
made it a
him for
thing.
25 years or 30 years.
Yeah.
And he's never had any falters. He's never had any. He's always shined through. And then
Yeah.
the video games, everything
Yeah.
about him is amazing.
Yeah, definitely. Sure is. His new documentary is great too.
Oh yes.
I can only imagine, like, not just as an artist, as a skateboarder, like, how is that not the absolute?
It's like a double. It's like winning the lottery twice in the same day.
It kind of is.
Yeah. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
So I'm super grateful for every opportunity like that I've had.
We're kind of fanboying about it, just because you have to understand, even just being adjacent and seeing that stuff and having it in the store and knowing the person that created it and the story is just, it's a lot of fun for us, because this is like now I'm 5 steps removed from Tony Hawk. It's like, instead of, 6 degrees from Kevin Bacon.
Yeah, sure.
So it's, strangely enough, like, as much as you've come in, we've just had normal one dude to another conversations. We've never even talked about the whole journey as far as getting to.
Yeah.
I was aware that you made Tony Hawk's skate, where you designed it, but
Yeah.
I've never known how to get there.
Yeah, and I think that
I've been aware of him just so we get this. I've been aware of him since Thrashin' in 1986, and then
did he make a
Yeah.
appearance in that.
Yes, he did. And then he was in Police Academy 4.
I remember that.
And then he was in Gleaming the Cube.
I remember that.
And that was like
Remember that.
so it's literally almost it's 35 years now that he's been.
Oh my gosh.
How long did he hold the record for the
Rotations in the air.
rotations? Yeah,
He did like a
I don't know.
was it 9? It was
it was the first person I think to do
He did the 900.
900,
900.
And that was like I think that was like one of the first X Games.
Like X Games didn't exist without Tony Hawk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Well,
awesome.
and like recently, like when he broke his leg.
Yeah.
And then he was skating like a week later.
It's like, no, you don't understand. I have to skate.
It's
Yeah.
cathartic.
It is very cool. But yeah, anytime, yeah, it's like you cross different thresholds, and with that, it's like, oh my gosh, opportunity. Do I step through this threshold? Do I let fear, like, consume me at this point,
Right.
and my insecurities like drown me and not take this opportunity, or do I push through them and then?
I honestly understand what you feel like, because I think we both feel this way from getting this store together. That was how big it was for us.
Yeah, I bet.
So it's like the insecurities coming through the.
Talking on this podcast right now, it's
Yeah.
still relatively new.
Yeah.
Like we're great friends with you. I don't think you're gonna talk shit or anything, but it's still like a level of nervousness where you're like, we're trying to do something new. But I think everybody kind of, as a human experience, enjoys.
People are complacent.
push.
A lot of people like being
Yeah.
complacent because there is no
It's safe.
there's no
You're right.
danger in complacency.
Yes. Yeah.
And
yes.
when you try something new, or like the fear of rejection,
Rejection and failure.
from especially Tony Hawk would be the ultimate slapdown. But the
Because it
fact
could
that
have gone that Mr. Hawk doesn't like any of these.
yeah, Mr. Hawk would like you not to contact him again.
Yeah.
But that turned into Mr. Hawk talking about you on his podcast.
Yeah.
Which was literally an amazing moment.
Yeah, and I think that there, like that old saying, like no risk, no reward.
Yes.
And I think that risk for the sake of risk is dumb, but a calculated risk for the right reasons, with wanting to do great things and go as far as you possibly can in a certain arena, I think I'm all for that.
And-
But don't take it the wrong way. Like fear, insecurities, self doubt.
You have to conquer all that.
You really do, and I'm filled with it. Like
Everyone is.
Yeah.
We just try. Everyone just is really good at hiding it.
yeah,
think,
I think you're right, man.
But it's necessary. I mean,
It is
also
necessary.
it's also one of those things that makes every single person on this planet relatable.
And I think also, like skateboarding, one thing that skateboarding taught me, and this is something that I had to like tap into to finally quit my day job. One thing that skateboarding taught me was calculated risk.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, because injury was the end of that.
yeah, because I would ollie these big, like ollies were my thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like some people were really good at flip tricks, ledge tricks, whatever. It's like I would just go big, like big ollies.
You would jump over stuff.
Stairs, gaps, and like I did some stuff that I could have died. Like
Yeah.
like
At the
I
bottom of those
seriously-
stairs is possibly a broken leg.
Yeah, like yeah, and
Compound fracture leads to infection. You're dead.
like I worked at an insurance company, which is all about
It's-
averting
yes,
risk.
yes.
And so like my life was just very, very safe, and it was like killing me on
Yeah.
the inside, you know.
Stifling your artistic.
And and my therapist was just like, have you ever like, what's a point of time in your past where you feel like you did take risks? And I was just like, when I skateboarded. And so I literally had to tap into that mindset a little bit and figure out, okay, this is like about to ollie 5 stairs, or, you know, I'm about to do a hand drill.
So that was actually one of the questions I had come up beforehand, you know, instead of the impromptu portions, but that is, when and how did you make that calculated risk to decide that I am a professional artist, this is what I do, this is who I am?
Like for a living?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I had just turned 40, and I was just
2017-ish.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yep. And I was really feeling the pinch of like unrest, internal unrest with just like, obviously with my vocation. And then one Friday night, like I had never watched the movie Fight Club before.
Yeah. Yeah.
and some guys at work were talking about it, and I was like, I've never seen that. I was like, do you own it? And he's like, yeah. So he let me borrow the DVD, and then one Friday night, I just sat down and
You
I
watched it on DVD. I'm just kidding.
So and so I put it in and I watched it, and that movie just affected me on such like a deep
Which is one of the questions I was going to ask
existential
you in a
level.
minute.
It just blew my mind. It just absolutely, so for where I was at in life and this sort of like massive existential, like,
Did you ever read the book?
I had read the book after I watched the movie.
Which did you prefer?
Well, the
The
book
movie
was-
probably had a more visceral effect on you, but
it did, and it was just a little bit different.
Yeah.
But I think that the book, looking back, I think that the movie did a really good job adapting.
it was a very good adaptation.
It really was.
It changed a few things, but it was so well done that it's one of the few movies that stands up to the book.
Yeah,
I think.
and like there was like the quotations that they used in the movie from the book. I mean, it was like the scenes.
We got Meatloaf in there. I mean, come on, man. Brad Pitt shirtless the entire time. I mean, come on, girls.
The best he's ever looked.
The abs, dude.
Yes.
The abs.
I don't know. He looked pretty good in Troy too, but
Yeah, Fight Club, Brad Pitt abs.
There you go.
Yeah, but watching that, and then there was one scene in there where they go into, and the scene just even now, just thinking about it, just blows my mind. But there's a scene where there's this guy named Raymond who works in a convenience store, and the Brad Pitt character and the other guy, the narrator or whatever.
Edward Norton.
Thank you. I always forget his name. Edward Norton were walking, and Brad Pitt's Tyler Durden character said, "Hold on, I got to go in here real quick. Let's go in back, and I'll meet you in back."
Yep.
And then
that's when they first. Was that when they first hit each other?
No,
No,
this is
no,
where
no,
he
this
say,
is-
this is where he says tomorrow's gonna be the best day.
Yeah, he goes in and he brings out this poor convenience store clerk
Yep.
at gunpoint.
Yes. Okay, I'm sorry. Yes.
Puts him down on the ground on his knees, like in an execution style. Puts a
Yep.
gun to his head, and it is, dude. It was like the most mind blowing. And this, it was like me. It was like life and me. It was like, and he asked, the guy's name is Raymond K. Hessel, and he was like, Raymond K. Hessel. He says, give me your driver's license. Gives him his driver's license, and he says, Raymond K. Hessel, I'm going to ask you this. I want you to answer me. What did you want to be? And then he's like, I don't know. The dude is just crying. Like,
Yeah.
the guy is a wreck. He has no idea
Completely
what's going
distraught,
on.
yeah.
And he was like, I'm going to ask you again, or I'm going to pull the trigger. And he's like, what did you want to be? And he was like, a veterinarian. I wanted to be a veterinarian. And he threatens him. The Tyler Durden character threatens him, and he says, if you are not, I'm going to come back, and I'm going to check on you. And
However, by time I forget what time.
and he says, if you are not on your way to becoming a veterinarian, when I come back and visit you, I'm going to murder you, basically.
Right.
Like, that was so, like, you don't get more intense than that,
Yeah.
like, in terms of just, like, a vocational calling.
Plus
and-
the release of imminent death, and then walking away from that, it does change your outlook on life and makes everything beautiful.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah. And he said that, and that's what he said. He said, tomorrow Raymond's going to
Tomorrow's gonna be the best day of his
the
life.
best day
Yeah.
of his life.
Because he'll wake up, the birds will be singing, he'll realize everything he had taken for granted.
Yeah.
And I think everybody has a small degree of that when they have like a loved one pass.
Sure.
As far as that goes, you kind of reflect on things or close calls with other people.
Yeah.
But it still can't be nearly as visceral
Yeah.
as when it happens to you.
To you.
And what the crazy thing about that scene is that he was holding a gun to Raymond's head and prepared to murder him.
Yes.
For his own vocational good. Like, that just blew my mind.
For the betterment of him.
For the better.
Well,
betterment of him.
it's another thing as far as like when you accept the premise that everybody out there or most people out there aren't doing what they want to do, and they're just
Miserable.
it's truly that it's a gift
Yeah.
that we're here. It's a gift that we're all here right now.
Man.
Yeah.
Office Space.
Office Space is another good one.
Yes.
Slightly different angle, but
Yes. But it works the same way.
That movie was cathartic.
Now, you've also created some fantastic comics. They are just,
Thank you.
they are amazing. And they're not in print right now, but what led you to not pursue a career in making comics? I asked you that last week, and I want to hear the answer again.
Okay, so I would say it's
because Tony Hawk didn't say he
know.
wanted him to.
Yeah.
You know,
it was a totally different. It was This was,
Once again, we're in Fort Wayne, which you don't think of as a comic mecca.
honestly, I'll tell you what it was. At that point in life, I had not learned to think big enough.
Okay.
I had not learned to think big enough.
Yep.
Like I just literally didn't. Like this is so lame, but this is what it was. Was like, well, I made these comics. I had them in time for whatever, Fort Wayne Comic Con or Indiana Comic Con.
Yep.
And I had a booth, maybe
Fantasticon or whatever.
whatever it was. And
So it was a sense of relief that you got it done, not
I got it done, and like, yeah, I sold some, but you know, the masses didn't flock to me at this Fort Wayne Comic Con, and
Yeah.
then like, I think I did kind of a half-assed effort to get them into the hands of a publisher, but just never really pursued that.
Yeah.
I didn't. I don't know, and I kind of just got burned out on comics,
Yeah.
honestly. Like as an art form, I still appreciate them, but drawing them,
Writing it, creating it, doing all the art, doing the lettering, the penciling, doing the... it has to be a lot.
and I think that, yeah, and then you just have to make a living in that. You have to
Dedicate
love,
a lot of your life towards it.
yeah, and props to like my friend Kanan White.
Yes.
who he's doing it. He's also a
doing
local,
some
and he's
great-
freaking amazing.
He's done some DC covers. He's got a Wakanda. Is it Wakanda?
Wakanda number 5 has him on the A cover coming out February
1st. Yes.
Dude is so good.
He's from Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Yeah.
He's amazing too.
Super
Fantastic.
amazing. But yeah, I think I just honestly had not learned to think big enough with that. And then it was kind of like I did like 2 graphic novels and then 2 more like regular sized comics. And then I did some other stuff for another company.
Do you mind giving the names out for people? Do you mean
Sure.
so they can
And
pursue them?
they actually are on Amazon. What's the Amazon?
Print to order
the
stuff.
Kindle app, or you mean
It's the print to order stuff. It's comic something.
Comixology?
Thank you. They're on there.
But please
Okay.
tell it because they are fantastic and they are beautiful.
Thanks. They okay. So it's the first one is called "The Life and Times of Julius Destructus."
Which
Yep.
was, oh my god,
Dude, it was a magnum opus.
My wife loved that thing, man. It was awesome.
Oh, I learned so much doing that. And that was one of those weird things. Like if you're a fan of David Lynch at
Yes.
all, and his theories on creativity,
Yeah.
and how ideas like.
But it was so well polished. It didn't look like a freshman effort at all.
And you know, honestly, there was a time when I just let it set for months
Yeah.
at a time in a year because I just hit a point where I'm like, I don't know what to do next with this.
how long was that from conception to finished product?
At least a couple years. I started on it. Like I remember, I started I started the day after Thanksgiving of like 2007,
Wow.
6 maybe, and then it didn't get published until 2012. I self-published it, and it's part of it's just because I didn't have the chops at that point. I was learning comics. I was developing my style.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? And then it's kind of like when you're an artist, like once you figure out like what kind of artist you are and you kind of get in your specific lane or style of
You can
art.
shut it all out and it's probably easier.
Yeah, because you're no longer trying to draw like Jim Lee in
Yeah,
order to get
yeah.
mass appeal or whatever. Like I've seen this like with another Fort Wayne local, Aaron Minier.
Yes.
Amazing. And
love
like
his art, too.
when I first met him, it was like 2004. And looking at his portfolio, it was super impressive. But he was it was extremely detailed. But he was doing kind of like the Jim Lee, Mark Silvestri looking thing. And then he was inking with like a regular like a pen.
Yeah.
Okay, and I didn't talk to him for a couple years, and then all of a sudden, I saw Facebook
Yep.
showed up, and he started posting images that he had inked with a brush pen, and it was like it totally changed everything for his style.
Sure.
Everything. It was all like he had just found his lane.
So was it his voice, or was it he discovered that tool and it happened to coincide?
I don't know.
I mean, I'd have to ask him. We will ask him that, but it's
We have his art downstairs on the walls.
yeah.
Yeah, dude, his stuff is like what's
I had him commission that Metal Gear
Yes,
piece for
he
me.
does the Metal Gear Solid stuff. He does is fantastic.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's amazing about his work is that, and I'm so jealous of it because you can't tell where the line art, the ink ends, and the colors start.
Mm-hmm.
It's so beautifully cohesive.
But you being an artist, seeing that and wonder now, me not knowing anything about it, it just looks like magic.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah,
just-
and I've tried to it's not, but I think that was like once I found a handful of artists who did really, really awesome like brush, pen and ink, like brush, like inked with a brush.
Yes.
Inked with a brush. And it was guys like Doug TeNapel, the guy who created Earthworm Jim. I had found his Creature Tech graphic novel that was it was an image book, and just the way he drew these chunky inks. And then from him I also discovered a guy named Sam Heady, and I feel like, I don't know if Sam's still alive. I think he may have like faked his own death a few years ago. Like, dude was amazing. Like his art was like a creative aphrodisiac for me. Like, just looking at his art made me want to make art.
Right.
And so studying his work and Doug TeNapel's work and some of the other artists who did really.
So that's, I'm sorry, actually, because I have to, I play guitar, and there's certain guitarists where you watch them and you listen to them and it makes you want to play. And then there are other ones where you watch them and you're like, holy shit, I just want to stop playing.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as like that next level, who's the person that makes you want to stop?
I always make the joke that just the other two Fort Wayne locals, Aaron and Kanan.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, my joke is, do you remember when your mom used to tell you when you were younger, Timmy, there's always somebody better. Like, I always just thought,
There's
like,
always someone
Aaron
better
and Kanan, those guys, they're freaking blow my mind. What's cool though is like we all have a very distinct style.
Yes.
And it's
I could see anything you've ever written, drawn, whatever, and I would know it was you.
Yeah.
Because you have that style.
Like, if either of those guys tried to ink my pencils,
right.
my pencils are so messy, like so much of my work comes from the ink work. It comes in when I'm inking, and it's just really funny. And I just feel like all three of us are like
color wise.
Yeah.
You are wild compared to
I love
the other two, but it's fantastic.
The oranges, it's the color palette used.
And it's funny because I feel like I struggle so much with color. So much. Like, it just takes so long. Like,
and you're even funnier than I thought you were going to be.
I legit struggle with color.
It's all everything I see is Halloween.
Interesting.
Because that's what you do, is the horror tinge stuff.
And that goes back to childhood. Like, that's funny that you say that, because what I automatically think of when I'm coloring a bold piece is, like, I think of the old Ben Cooper, like, Halloween costumes and how those things were so freakishly colorful. And
Killer Clowns from Outer Space, that era where everything was just louder than you know, Critters, like the stuff that you were talking about with that
all the neon
bootleg.
colors.
It was just a different time.
Yeah, and there was something about the way those masks were painted. There was a certain
garishness.
Yeah, what I think is also really funny is that a lot of those costumes had, like if it was a Boba Fett costume, it wouldn't have like his costume printed on the costume. It would have a picture of Boba Fett that said Boba Fett.
Yeah.
Like, you may not know who this is. Let's make sure.
Like bright red on yellow vinyl.
Yes.
And then the mask
that you couldn't breathe through.
You couldn't breathe, and it would hurt your template so hard.
It would squeeze. I had a giant ass head, and it would squeeze.
Smelled bad after about 5 or 10 minutes because you're in there running from house to house. All you're doing is exhaust on the inside of that mask, and it's like dripping through the lips. Oh my gosh,
yeah. But yeah, it's those sort of things, the bold imagery, and like the imagery that I would see on toy packaging when I was little.
Do you draw a lot of inspiration from Geiger?
Some. Yeah, I went through a Geiger phase. Like, I bought his Alien book, the Geiger Alien book, a while back. And yeah, growing up, I think especially like in college, I really liked his stuff. And some of it's kind of unnecessarily evil.
Some of it is too much.
Like porno-ish.
Yes.
Kind of gross.
Oh, yeah.
But the biomechanical, there is nobody else who does Geiger like Geiger.
Flesh and machine melding.
Didn't the singer of Korn have his mic stand designed by Geiger?
Probably.
He either designed it or he had someone design it to look like Geiger made it, because it's like
Jonathan Davis. Okay,
yeah. It's got like a woman on it, and it's very, very, very Geiger.
Yeah.
It's weird. I understand the vibe that it has. It just feels like it's not any more nudity than like a Frank Frazetta thing would have.
But there's a lot
more naughty.
Well, no, because there's a lot more penises in it.
And everything looks decayed.
Right.
Decayed and alien and biomechanoid, and then there's like these creepy like zombie baby heads just kind of like, you know what I'm saying, all over the place. And
Plus, he looked
unsettling. Maybe is the word I
Well,
would use.
he looked creepy as hell too. Like
I watched his documentary.
oh, I
Black
did too.
Star.
I did too.
It was really good.
Well, it's just because you're like not just even looking at the art. It takes it to a certain point where you're thinking like you kind of have some insight inside of his head, and you're
But
kind of
he
like,
lived
that
like
doesn't seem right.
he lived like that. Like there's that bar there in his town.
Oh,
that
yeah, yeah,
he
it was a whole
designed
bar. Yeah,
that is
yeah.
all. It looks like the inside of an alien mothership, and it's like, he's a bizarre guy.
I mean, what a amazing, like,
Yeah,
How do you market that though?
But his
starting
art is,
off?
but his style is like yours. It's singular. If you see a Geiger piece, you know it. You know it's either Geiger or it was inspired by Geiger.
yeah, and that's why with the alien print I did, what I love about Geiger's Alien is that underneath the dome,
The clear skull cap
from
the original
from
Alien.
the original is a clear skull cap. You could see
the brains
the
and
brain, the skeletal, like the skull of the alien,
yeah,
and
'cause you
these
could see the
dark
eye
hollow-
sockets.
Oh my gosh, that's freaking magical! And so when I did that very horizontal,
I had one of the
Alien.
I had one of the big alien
the
toys.
big chap, I think is what they
it's
call
a big
that.
chap. Yeah, and my mom gave it to somebody else, and I was looking on eBay, and they're like $400 now.
Oh yeah, I had one for a hot minute.
They're so cool though.
It's beautiful, and that's how it's designed. It's got the
It's like a skull behind the clear cap. Yeah,
yeah, it's a beautiful toy. I think a lot of them ended up in the
garbage.
because Kenner was like,
And they were way too big. Like it
they were
was
huge, 12 inches, I think.
it was 12 or 18. It was
Oh, it
big.
could have been bigger, yeah.
I know it was bigger than it should have. It was very cool though. It always irritated my mom.
It's a cool toy.
It's a lot to manage.
Yeah. So, what comic?
What are we talking about?
What
again?
comic era is your favorite?
My favorite comic era. Okay. Just getting over the unintentional.
We're done with penises now, Tim. We're done.
We're moving on. We're moving on to '90s trash.
Okay, sorry. 90s trash. Yeah.
Where everyone looked like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Matt and I are
even
just,
the chicks.
Matt and I are just innocently talking about 12 and 18-inch action figures and. All right.
What comic? What are your favorite comics? What do you think about when you think of comics?
Okay, my favorite things, like I love 80s comics, and I love, like I will go right for, like if I come across, like you guys have those kick-ass discount bins in your store.
Yeah.
Like I'll look for the yellowed ones that are yellow and kind of on top, because I can always tell that's like 90s and before.
And they got that mold smell to them.
That's stored in the
Like,
basement.
this might make me sick.
But I
or
love it.
mothballs. I got some Hulk ones that smell like mothballs. I was like,
Because I've heard you when you come in, I've heard so many times that you're just coming in to look for inspiration, or you're coming
totally.
in to change your mindset or whatever. And
yeah.
we love having you when you come in too. But
It's a good, yeah. You guys have been sort of my therapist on a couple occasions.
there you go.
Yeah. So favorite, like I love the 80s stuff. And then last year, my youngest daughter and I came in, I think it was on a Friday in the spring.
Okay.
I think that was the first time you'd ever been in here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And you guys had the magical discount bins, like 50 cent and dollar comics.
Yeah.
Yep.
And oh my gosh, it was just filled with 90s gold. Like I really geeked out that day, and I was like, ooh, like
We got lucky.
all
The
this
first
image.
the first collection we ever bought was 6,000 plus books, and most of them were 80s and 90s stuff.
yeah.
So a lot of them went in $1.50 because there was no. I mean, what do you do with 6,000 books that are worth nothing?
And there's millions and millions of them.
Yes.
But the thing
The
is,
print runs are so high.
everybody, the coolest thing, it
takes you
unites
back to
everybody in a store.
It takes you back to a certain time in your life, or it
Yeah.
reminds you of something that happened, or
Yeah.
it puts you in a place.
Yes, I got a good answer for you here. So recently, I tracked down Tales of the Green Lantern Corps 1 through 3. It was a mini series. When I was in 6th grade, that's when I really I always kind of liked comics, but something happened in middle school creatively. 6th grade was the year, and that's when I really really started loving comics as an art form.
Yeah.
Like it had moved beyond just like a casual cool grocery store comic book. It became, no, I'm trying to draw like this. And I think what that was that's when I first saw the artwork of Todd McFarlane.
Yes.
And Frank Miller.
Yes.
And Mike Mignola. And dude, I couldn't figure. I was like, what was it about those guys' art that was just different than other comic book artists on the scene?
Well, Frank Miller has that blocky, lazy style, but it works so well.
The chunky black.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Dark Knight stuff.
He used space differently, I feel like, than everybody else did.
Well,
as far as
it doesn't look. None of his stuff really looks polished. It looks like he did it on purpose, and it works so well. Mm-hmm. And I'm not disparaging it. I'm saying I fell in love with the Dark Knight too, and I loved his artwork. Like Ronin was a little sloppier drawing. Like
it was a different style. It was more ornate.
Yeah,
I think he inked it with a crow quill or something.
Yeah, but the Dark Knight stuff was. I loved it, and Mike Mignola. I mean, geez,
oh my gosh, the
Hellboy. I have all the library editions of Hellboy, and I read them. I try to read them once a year, and it's just they're so beautifully done.
Yeah, and it was his Cosmic Odyssey series that he did for DC.
Yes.
That was like the first. Again, I was in 6th grade, and so I would buy a comic, and I would see ads for these other comics.
Yeah.
And like I would see ads for Watchmen and Dark Knight Returns, and like that scene. I'm like, what was it about seeing all of the DC superheroes drawn in Mike Mignola's style?
Yeah.
That just amped me up, and I was just like, and that's when I started trying to draw my own comics, like in 6th grade. And
because essentially, to bring it back, it might be that you have an image in your head of all those heroes.
Yeah.
And Mignola was doing to them what you do with that Tony Hawk image. And I think it might feed into it somewhat as far as like, that's the cool thing is everybody knows those characters. Mm-hmm. And we asked, another gentleman that was on last week, Rick, when you see Batman, who's the artist? And everybody's got an answer. Mm-hmm. And that's the beautiful part about things lasting that time. And it's cool.
Yeah, it is.
You may say, everybody will say somebody different.
It's the same thing with the live action Batman. Who's your live action Batman?
Yeah, right.
So,
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I was just going to say, and I think that's when I became really interactive with comic books. And there was another comic shop at the time, and I remember they had like a 25 or a 50-cent sale. Mm-hmm. And I went in there, and I just
loaded up,
dude. Yep. Like day after day after day. Like my parents took me to that comic shop so many times, and I just bought so. And
there was a flea market that my dad would always go look for car parts, and they had a couple comic book places in there, and I would go in there and dig through stuff. But I got like a Ghost Rider #1 and 2 for $1.
Oh my gosh!
And but I would go there with $10 and I walk away with 30 books or whatever. It was a great feeling. You go home and you just fall into these books and these storylines, and it was a magical time.
It really was. And I again, is that you have those periods of time in your life, especially like as a kid, and then like the weird middle school years. Like I could tell you there was times in growing up where there was like concentrated time periods of intense creative development, and comics really played into that. In terms of comics and music was huge.
Well, I have some questions I want to ask you now.
Sure.
What comic, novel, or piece of literature had the biggest impact on you, or changed the way you viewed the world, and explain why?
Oh wow. Does it matter what like time period? Or?
No, anything. What had the biggest impact on you?
Oh my gosh, I would say. Oh, that's hard because there's several different genres you could cover. But since it's a comic podcast, we'll go comics. I think that Todd McFarlane, seeing his work was huge.
In Amazing Spider-Man or Spider-Man?
He was, I can't remember the first time I saw his artwork, I think was in maybe Batman Year 2.
Yeah.
That was in one of them. There was also a book called Invasion. And I think that Todd McFarlane's work it just made me want to draw. Like I loved his use of detail and lines and smoke.
He's the one that added the webbing. I mean, the webbing, as far as Spider-Man, instead of it just being like streams of webbing, he's the one that added the curl around it, and you're like,
oh, it's so dynamic. Like, and so like I remember seeing an article about him in Comic Scene magazine. I think that's what and it was all about him and Venom, and I would just remember just kind of falling into that. And then like once I kind of got a bead on an artist, I would look for other stuff like, oh, well, he did Detective Comics. Let's see what else he did in
Right.
that.
Yeah.
And then, oh, he did Amazing Spider-Man. I'm gonna go, and then I would just hunt down and I would just buy everything.
It was way more immersive then too, because you had to do research.
Yeah,
to
you
figure
did.
out where to even research. It's
There
not
was
like
no
popping it up on
Google.
No,
you
there wasn't.
You had to get a yes.
Another one that was huge.
I had every single Wizard magazine to find out what was going on.
That was our
growing up,
internet,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it was fun.
That's funny. Another one would be Flaming Carrot. Bob Burden and Flaming Carrot.
Yes.
Super offbeat, independent comic. Those covers just
Spoke to you.
oh my gosh! Again, and it's similar like with skateboarding, where you have like strong line art and like flat use of intense color, and his covers were just amazing.
Yeah.
Like, and just weird, kind of the appreciation of the surreal. I think.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
it's weird. How does that change for you? I mean, we're asking you to go back and reach out now, back to that time period. But would you say that your tastes have changed from those people? Like, has it evolved, or is it like?
Yeah,
Has it grown inside of you, or have you stuck to that core?
No, I would say it's definitely grown. Like those guys, like on your creative journey, like you have certain artists that really impact you and move you forward for time and pull you forward. And
That is my second question I have for you.
Mm-hmm.
Who are 3 or more, it doesn't matter the number, of your favorite artists of any genre?
okay,
It doesn't matter.
so
And what do you take away from their art?
okay, so with skateboarding, I would say VC Johnson and Pusshead. I'm going to include those as one,
Yeah.
because they're both skateboard artists, and I would say very intricate and beautiful controlled line art, and beautiful use of color, and just an attitude.
Yeah,
There's just like skate art had a certain attitude,
it did.
and
Like an outlaw. It was.
There is-
on the-
there is-
it was a fringe of society.
there is
kind
a
of thing.
subversiveness
Yes.
to it. A subversiveness to it. So I would say those guys for skateboarding. For comics. Well, I talked about Todd McFarlane.
Yes.
He was huge, but I'm going to say Frank Miller.
Okay.
Because in 6th grade, I got my tonsils out. And one of my, I'm not sure why, but my parents thought I needed to get rewarded for getting my tonsils out and being good about it.
Well, most other kids get popsicles, comic books.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just
Suck
as
on
good,
this.
I suppose.
Suck on this comic book.
But I remember my parents got me a Rodney Mullen skateboard, which was drawn by VC Johnson.
That's awesome.
Freaking awesome, amazing graphic. And then also they got me, I wanted the trade paperback for Dark Knight Returns.
Yes.
I didn't know why, but I loved the way, I couldn't tell you who the artist was, but I just knew.
Was it because of the cover art of the first issue with the lightning strike and him swinging through it? Was that what it was?
That was it. And then but I think what it was I saw the cover of Batman like crouched down
Yes.
and looking all chunky and beat up, and just
He looks like a monster. That's
he looks
fighting
like
monsters.
a monster, and like he has like kind of like rolls.
Yeah.
Like he has like
He's a big dude.
oh, and it was just such a weird way of drawing Batman, but it was magical. And then
Well, everything up to that point was it went from the oldest version of Batman, where he was kind of normal person, like
Yeah.
not like ripped or anything, into everything becoming more angular, and it was a switch back to him being more round.
and older, like he
Yeah.
was post middle age.
Yeah, because he kind of he did start the craze of the old man, because he was Batman. He was aged. He was grumpy, and he was unsatisfied with the world, which led us to Old Man Logan, Old Man Hawkeye, Old Lady Harley. All these stories that are so great because they put the timeline up at 30 years, and they show us these people that have been trying to do this for years and how it affects their lives.
And none of them are happy ever after.
No, and those are some of my favorite stories too, because it's more realistic to me.
Yeah. Kingdom Come was cool like that.
Oh, yes,
I went
yes.
through an Alex Ross phase.
Yes, I did. I think everybody did. Downstairs we have my favorite Ross piece, which is the Joker Harley piece.
The Mad Love.
Yes, the Matt. Well,
Harley, just the Harley Quinn one.
yeah, the Harley Quinn one, where Joker's behind her. But it was
Oh yeah.
that's
I know
him and
that
his
one.
wife. He took a picture.
Yeah, he used photo references for
Yeah,
everything.
Kingdom Come. That was the one. One of the characters was his dad. Like,
yeah, the main character, the Norm McKay.
So I'm excited for a Kingdom Come movie. By the way,
It'd be sweet.
yes, it would be.
That would be.
It would be awesome.
And so for the third, I would say, oh man, that's tricky. Okay, let's go music, because music is art also.
Yes, it is.
I would say because music has played such a huge role.
Yes.
In like it's like
Are you one of those people that associate sounds with colors?
no, I associate music with,
Counterculture, skateboarding, surfing.
but also I can pin it down to a specific year.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I remember listening to this album by Bad Religion called No Control on the way to Florida in 1991. On the plane, also drawing comics.
Yep.
Awesome. It's weird how certain things take you back to a moment in time in your life.
Yeah, like I had my Walkman, I had a dubbed tape of it.
And you cannot remember that anything else that happened that day, probably. What you had for breakfast,
Nothing, but I just remember traveling and going to Florida and listening, just rocking out to that. So I think music has been huge for me, and like I would say like artists like I'm a man of extremes in that, like I'm heavy metal, punk rock, gangster rap, and classical. Like anything in between that, like
yeah.
like you won't find me listening to Ben Folds 5 or Ben whatever.
No pop music for you.
Not really, no.
Do
But
you listen while you paint and things? Is that part of the process?
a lot of times. Okay, so there's a lot of times, like if I'm doing the deep trench work, the concepting stuff, like at the beginning of a new project, like that's the hardest part. I'm doing the concepting stuff, and typically like there's like nothing going on. It's just me and silence.
Right.
And I'm just like, but then like once I get that part nailed down, it requires the most concentration. And sometimes that just requires me getting up and sometimes that's no input from anything, and sometimes that's lots of input from lots of things.
Sure.
It's just a matter. But then once I hit the ink and color stage, it's just like game on. It's like
Sure.
It's a more relaxed atmosphere.
in the flow. In the flow.
You're not stressed out.
Like I can have a TV show on. Like I just got done watching a ton of.
Because all that's left is finishing touches that you have.
Yeah.
It's a process that you know it's going to happen. There's no stress to it. It's just going to.
Right. And there might be some experimenting, but I'm in the flow. There's a certain channel that I'm in at that point creatively. And so like I'm huge into like Wu-Tang Clan, Tupac.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, huge. So music would be my third.
Now when I hear them, I'm going to think of your art too.
That's awesome.
My next question is sci-fi or fantasy?
Okay, so for the longest time, I thought that Star Wars was sci-fi. So back in the day, I would have said science fiction.
But it's more science fantasy. It's a melding of the two.
I'm definitely more fantasy. Like I think that, and this is, we've had this discussion, but I think that's why I didn't care for Andor.
Okay.
That show. I've mentioned, we've had this conversation.
It's just you.
Yeah. You're the only one in the world.
But like, I think that seems like that was maybe like I know that science fiction kind of has a feel now to it because I've tried watching other stuff and I'm just like I'm just not really into this. But I think that's why I liked Star Wars because it was more science fantasy or fantasy.
It was more it was written for children too. It was more childlike and more. I prefer sci-fi myself, but because I feel sci-fi is more grown up and it deals with more important matters or it deals with things that are real.
More cerebral.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
And fantasy lets you just escape.
Yeah. Like bad guys, good guys, and lightsabers. And so definitely fantasy.
What's your favorite fantasy movie?
Favorite fantasy movie? I love, well, I don't want to say Star Wars because that's everybody's.
Like Legend, Lord of the Rings.
Krull was a huge one.
Yes.
Freaking
Fantastic.
loved Krull.
Last Starfighter?
I think I only saw that once or twice. I couldn't tell you
I
much.
tried watching that and it did not hold up to what
That's why I haven't rewatched it.
because
I'm like, I want to feel that way still because I remember.
and the CG and animation stuff is horrible.
Yeah.
It did not age well.
Yeah. I do remember it. I've seen it, but I haven't watched it since childhood.
It was a cool premise.
Yeah.
It still is very cool. It just didn't stand up.
Yeah, I loved Krull, though, and I did hunt that down in my adult life, and
That's cool.
I own it on DVD.
All right.
VHS too.
That's cool.
And what TV show or movie is your guilty pleasure? What do you escape in, or what do you can put on at any time and just fall
Oh my
into?
gosh. Okay, so In high school, that would have been Beverly Hills 90210. Since like 90% of your audience probably never heard of that. Currently, I got done watching almost everything with Danny McBride on HBO.
Oh, he is a national treasure, man.
That's not guilty pleasure. That doesn't count.
Dude,
have you seen The Righteous Gemstones?
Yes.
He is like oh my
just
gosh.
showed her.
Is that what you were talking about earlier with the? We were talking about before we started. Is that what you're talking about the show?
Probably, maybe.
With the meth and everything, the preacher and all the meth. I thought that was what you're. He is amazing though.
Yeah, watch that, and then what was the other one?
I can't focus.
Eastbound,
You said
Eastbound and Down.
90210. I'm like.
By the way, I met Ian Ziering one time at Comic-Con, and my two friends, Jeff and Ben, that I was with, they had no idea that I had this like secret life that had been hidden from people for so many years. And then Ian Ziering was in the like Star Alley or whatever at Comic-Con, Motor City, and Ben was just like, "Hey, I'm gonna go get my autograph," and then I was like, "Okay, I'll be up there in a minute."
Was he showing up there at the point where because he was doing voice acting as far as like some stuff? Or?
Yeah, no, Sharknado era.
Yeah, well, that was when things drastically changed. Okay, because he's done some voice acting, but he was also in
Micro
Swamp
Mice from
Thing.
Mars. Oh, was he?
The newest Swamp Thing series.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that.
I mean, it got canceled and it's not going to go any further. But he was actually a role that.
Oh, cool! I didn't realize that.
Yeah, so I feel like he has a legit love. I don't know for a fact, but I don't. Sharknado. Oh man, this is not going anywhere.
But I was standing there talking to him, and I was just like, "Hey, just curious." And I started asking these like 90210 questions that only somebody who had a deep knowledge of the show's history would know. I was like, "So."
He's like, "You guys can go ahead and walk off. We're going to talk 90210 lore."
And like my friend Ben and Jeff just kind of like. It really took them back, and they just kind of like took a couple steps back, and they were like, "What is happening?" Because me and Ian Ziering were just like, we were there, and I was like, "Well, what about Claire? What about Kelly? How was Shannon Doherty to work with? Who was?" And like, what was the David character like? And so yeah, it was weird. So I'll stick with 90210 because I just.
No, that's very cool though. It's a guilty pleasure. That's what it is.
The Danny McBride stuff, like I said,
he is a national treasure. Everything he's in, he shines.
Eastbound and Down, and then I watched the other one, the Vice President, Righteous Gemstones, and then Vice
Principals was amazing.
Absolutely incredible.
Walton Goggins is also a national treasure. He is.
Dude, that show is so insane, so insane.
You've ruined the podcast. Here on out. Nobody's gonna top 90210 at all whatsoever.
No.
Nobody's gonna give an answer that I'm gonna be like,
nope.
I haven't said anything for the past minute. I'm still processing. That's awesome.
He gave me an autograph. Oh, dude. Okay. Also, let me keep going with Ian Ziering here. But so while we were talking, like I got him to, he signed an autograph, black and white, for him for me, and it said, "Hey Tim, thanks for talking shop, Ian." And then while we were there, he was telling us about all his like girlfriends and stuff, and like all these ladies that he had dated, and how he and how
like, thanks Ian, this is what I paid ticket price for.
No, and then it was interesting.
Can I see the pictures too?
He had talked about he had just appeared on Dancing with the Stars, and he kept using the word. He kept using the term "dancing pelvis to pelvis."
Oh my!
With this woman that he was dancing with, and he was just like, and I'm just like, it was a very surreal.
What an odd description.
And he was talking about his wife, and
I only dance pelvis to pelvis.
He said that he was saying that he had dated a lot of tens, a lot of perfect tens, and then he showed us how to like.
How does Tim Barron react to speaking with somebody so insecure?
No.
He also showed me how to like have a business card in my between two fingers and like flip it, like flick it.
He's like, and if you put a 20 in between both of those in Vegas, they'll get you an upgraded suite. What?
They'll give you pamphlets of more tins to find.
Jeez.
I thoroughly enjoyed. He seemed like a great guy.
No, I'm sorry. I was taking it a different direction. He sounds like a creep to me.
Is this how all Comic Cons go?
We really thank you for
Not
coming
my
on, man,
experiences.
because we
pleasure.
enjoy you so much.
We've had a great time, honestly.
This is fun.
We're gonna have to call it for today, though.
We're gonna have to have you come back, but we want to give you a platform now to push out anything you want to talk about or try to sell yourself. What do you want? What?
Upcoming projects you're working on, if you want to
Sure.
push that.
Take it
or
away.
Tell us how we can get in
Take it away.
contact with you and your art and all that stuff for the people.
Awesome. Well, I have several projects coming out this year from different skateboard companies. We've got a really cool series from Birdhouse that's coming out. That's due for later this year. Probably the biggest thing right now is I just got done my first action figure, like professional released, like factory produced.
Phantom
Zombie or
No, it's the Astro Zombie.
Astro Zombie.
Astro
That
Zombie.
thing is amazing. I'm gonna have to get one.
Okay, so that it was again. Do you mind if I share the story real quick
No,
about how that
please.
came to be? Again, because it's just like life is so much like one thing turning into another, that leads to another. So 4 years ago, I went to a creative conference called Creative South, highly recommended, and I met a bunch of people, and one of them was this guy, Amir, who is a super amazing graphic designer, part of this design troupe called Forefathers. Okay, he asked me to do a course on this app called Procreate for the iPad Pro. So what I did is I designed a poster, and it was an Astro Zombies poster, and then I showed my entire creative process from start to finish. Okay, and then that was that. And then once that was released, I posted the photo to Instagram, and people loved it, and I made prints of it and sold it. But then this other guy, this guy Alex Nito, reached out, never talked to him before. I don't even know if he lives in America. I have no idea where he lives. But he had designed a 3D, like he did a 3D design and action figure design of this character.
I was going to ask you that. What is the process for that? Is it modeled in clay? Is it modeled 3D and printed? Or how do they do that?
In this case, and in most instances, it's 3D modeled, and I'm not sure what they use, but it's like sculpted in 3D.
Yeah.
And then tweaked to make sure everything fits, I guess. I don't understand all that process.
The arms and legs move, right? So there's probably multiple pieces put together.
Yeah, so 5-point articulation.
Yeah.
But this guy reached out and he had sculpted it for me, and he'd even like made a little ad for it, and it was like Timber and Astro Zombies and music and stuff like that. And I was like, oh my gosh! I was like, do you mind if I post this? He was like, no, go right ahead. So posted it. People freaked out and tagged Super 7, and then Super 7 reached out to me and wanted to make a figure of it, and I was like, absolutely. And because most of the work was already done, the figure is sculpted, and so they licensed that from me in Wave 1. The teal Astro Zombie just dropped in November, and then Wave 2, the black and silver Astro Zombie.
So that's wholly your creation. You are actually
That is amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, there's other things out there that are quote-unquote Astro Zombies.
Where will people be able to find these at?
Okay, so I have them available in my Etsy store. If you just go to timbarron.com and click on store, you can find them in there. I have signed.
Is it under Tim Barron or is it Tim Barron Art?
Actually, I think timbarron.com and timbarronart.com
Okay.
will get you to my page. And then if you just go to the store, that'll take you right to my Etsy. And I've got signed versions of that in my store. And then they're also still available on super7.com. The ones I sell in my store are a bit more expensive because they're signed, autographed.
And you sell your skateboards, and you sell your prints, and you sell your others. You have a lot of stuff on your Etsy. I've looked at it many times.
Yeah. I've got skateboards, prints, original arts, action figures.
So please go to Tim's Etsy page and check it out.
Yeah, the direct Etsy link is just etsy.com/shop/timbarronart, TIMBARONART.
And you're on Facebook, Instagram.
Instagram, I'm just Tim Barron Art, and I'm on TikTok also. That's also Tim Barron Art.
And as you'd mentioned before, you can get those graphic novels on Amazon, you said?
They are available through Comixology.
So they're digital. You can get them digitally.
Digital,
Okay.
and you've inspired me. I maybe try to get those reprinted.
And what's the name of that again?
The Life and Times of Julius Destructus.
Which is fantastic.
And then the other one was called The Night Before Krampus.
That was also fantastic.
And then there's two more. One's called Mummator and the Conquerors of the Cosmos, and one's called Frankenstein and the Conquerors of the Cosmos. And those two are just total masters of the universe ripped off, knockoffs with monsters.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
Credit where it's due. That's
yes.
awesome.
Once again, thank you so much for coming. It's such a
pleasure.
joy when you're coming to the store anytime. We love talking to you.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate you.
We love
guys.
seeing your art.
Been super encouraging, and I appreciate all the opportunities you've given me as well.
Had a great time. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
So once again, we're going to end this, and then we also want you to reach out and support your local comic shops because they are not doing as well as you think they are. And we will see you again soon.
Thank you very much. Bye.